Language Foundations Vocabulary Flashcards, helping you achieve understanding.
A vote to select the winner of a position or political office. The results of the election will be announced tonight. The act of selecting someone or something, the exercise of deliberate choice. Her election of medicine as a profession. The predestination of some individuals as objects of divine mercy, especially as conceived by Calvinists. The status or fact of being elected. They celebrated his election. A legal right guaranteed by the 15th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, guaranteed to women by the 19th Amendment. American women got the vote in 1920. A choice that is made by counting the number of people in favor of each alternative. There were only 17 votes in favor of the motion. The total number of voters who participated. They are expecting a large vote. A body of voters who have the same interests. He failed to get the black vote. Bring into existence or make available by vote. They voted aid for the underdeveloped countries in Asia. Express a choice or opinion. I vote that we all go home. Express one's choice or preference by vote. Vote the Democratic ticket. Express one's preference for a candidate or for a measure or resolution. Cast a vote. He voted for the motion. The opinion of a group is determined by voting. They put the question to a vote. The act of choosing or selecting. One of a number of things from which only one can be chosen. What option did I have? The right to buy or sell property at an agreed price. The right is purchased, and if it is not exercised by a stated date, the money is forfeited. The quantity of a crop that is harvested. He sent the first picking of berries to the market. The person or thing chosen or selected. He was my pick for mayor. A heavy iron tool with a wooden handle and a curved head that is pointed on both ends. They used picks and sledges to break the rocks. Pull lightly but sharply with a plucking motion. Pay for something. Pick up the tab. Look for and gather. Pick mushrooms. The act of choosing or selecting. You can take your pick. The best people or things in a group. Harass with constant criticism. Don't always pick on your little brother. Eat intermittently. Take small bites of. Remove unwanted substances from, such as feathers or pits. A small thin device, of metal or plastic or ivory, used to pluck a stringed instrument. The yarn woven across the warp yarn in weaving. Attack with or as if with a pickaxe of ice or rocky ground, for example. Hit lightly with a picking motion. A basketball maneuver. Obstructing an opponent with one's body. He was called for setting an illegal pick. A thin sharp implement used for removing unwanted material. He used a pick to clean the dirt out of the cracks. Pilfer or rob. Pickpockets. Provoke. Pick a fight or a quarrel. Remove in small bits. Pick meat from a bone. Select carefully from a group. She finally picked her successor. The person or thing chosen or selected. The act of choosing or selecting. Your choice of colors was unfortunate. One of a number of things from which only one can be chosen. My only choice is to refuse. Of superior grade. Choice wines. Appealing to refined taste. Choice wine. The person or thing chosen or selected. A natural process resulting in the evolution of organisms best adapted to the environment. A passage selected from a larger work. The act of choosing or selecting. An assortment of things from which a choice can be made. The store carried a large selection of shoes. Theology, being determined in advance, especially the doctrine, usually associated with Calvin, that God has foreordained every event throughout eternity, including the final salvation of mankind. Previous determination as if by destiny or fate. Theology, being determined in advance, especially the doctrine, usually associated with Calvin, that God has foreordained every event throughout eternity, including the final salvation of mankind. Theology, being determined in advance, especially the doctrine, usually associated with Calvin, that God has foreordained every event throughout eternity, including the final salvation of mankind. Theology, being determined in advance, especially the doctrine, usually associated with Calvin, that God has foreordained every event throughout eternity, including the final salvation of mankind. A mental determination or resolve in advance, an antecedent intention to do something. He entered the argument with a predetermination to prove me wrong. The act of determining or ordaining in advance what is to take place. A condition or position in which you find yourself. The unpleasant situation, or position, of having to choose between two evils. A job in an organization. The spatial property of a place where or way in which something is situated. The position of the hands on the clock. The particular portion of space occupied by something. A rationalized mental attitude. An opinion that is held in opposition to another in an argument or dispute. A way of regarding situations or topics, etc. The arrangement of the body and its limbs. The relative position or standing of things or especially persons in a society. Atheists do not enjoy a favorable position in American life. A point occupied by troops for tactical reasons. Put into a certain place or abstract location. The act of putting something in a certain place. An item on a list or in a sequence. Moved from third to fifth position. The post or function properly or customarily occupied or served by another. Cause to be in an appropriate place, state, or relation. In team sports, the role assigned to an individual player. What position does he play? The act of positing, an assumption taken as a postulate or axiom. The appropriate or customary location. The cars were in position. A state at a particular time. The current status of the arms negotiations. The relative position or standing of things or especially persons in a society. He had the status of a minor. Election again. He did not run for re-election. A national or state election. Candidates are chosen in all constituencies. A preliminary election where delegates or nominees are chosen. The occurrence of surplus liquid, as water, exceeding the limit or capacity. A final election to resolve an earlier election that did not produce a winner. A special election between regular elections. A special election between regular elections. A preliminary election where delegates or nominees are chosen. Of or being the essential or basic part. One of the main flight feathers projecting along the outer edge of a bird's wing. Coil forming the part of an electrical circuit such that changing current in it induces a current in a neighboring circuit. Current through the primary coil induces current in the secondary coil. Most important element. Policemen were primary targets. Astronomy, a celestial body, especially a star, relative to other objects in orbit around it. Not derived from or reducible to something else, basic. A primary instinct. Of first rank or importance or value, direct and immediate rather than secondary. Primary goals. An election in which each person has as many votes as there are positions to be filled and they can all be cast for one candidate or can be distributed in any manner. The act of appointing summarily, with or without the appointee's consent. The selection of a new member, usually by a vote of the existing membership. The act of appointing summarily, with or without the appointee's consent. The selection of a new member, usually by a vote of the existing membership. Election. A ballot that is cast while absent, usually mailed in prior to election day. Elections. More than half of the votes. A winner, of a race or an election etc., whose victory is contested. Someone who contests an outcome, of a race or an election etc. Elections. More than half of the votes. The property resulting from being or relating to the greater in number of two parts, the main part. The majority of his customers prefer it. The age at which persons are considered competent to manage their own affairs. In an election with more than two options, the number of votes for the candidate or party receiving the greatest number, but less than half of the votes. A large indefinite number. A plurality of religions. The state of being plural. To mark plurality, one language may add an extra syllable to the word whereas another may simply change the vowel in the existing final syllable. Convert into a pollard. Pollard trees. An inquiry into public opinion conducted by interviewing a random sample of people. The top of the head. A tame parrot. Get the opinions of people by asking specific questions. Get the votes of. The counting of votes, as in an election. The part of the head between the ears. Vote in an election at a polling station. Someone who holds a government position, either by election or appointment. In an election with more than two options, the number of votes for the candidate or party receiving the greatest number, but less than half of the votes.
Become our student and get access to effective and free educational materials. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to become a part of our growing YouTube community and to learn English effectively.